Good morning. My name's Jim, and got some stories for you. Today we're going to talk about children in the afterlife. And yeah, it's a little creepy. Uh, the first experience I had with a child in the afterlife was long before Colleen and I ever got involved in this stuff. I I bought a truck when I was young. I had late teens, early 20s, and I wanted to make money with it. Uh, I put an ad in the paper back in those days, newspaper, to clean out basements and whatnot for people. I was always involved in antiques and flea markets, so I had a way to sell anything I got out of a basement. I was doing a house north of Allentown, just on the other side of the Lehigh River. Big old Victorian place. I'm in the basement, moving hundreds of mason jars, and they have value. Uh, and I'm spending all day there, just loading, loading, loading. There's a little girl running between the columns in the basement. Big, maybe 2 foot square columns holding up the house. And she's dodging in and out. She's wearing a white dress, maybe 5 years old. I don't know, I'm hard with ages, but she's dodging in between, just playing peekaboo with me. Not saying anything, I didn't hear a sound. Just playing peekaboo, and I'm playing back as I'm trying to get my job done. The husband comes home from work and comes down the exterior basement door to see how I'm doing. I tell him about the little girl. He pulls me aside and quietly says to me, "Do not say anything to my wife about her." And then he goes on to tell me the story. Here, that little girl died in a cistern there in the basement, and she's still there. Well, many, many years later, Colleen knew this story, and she asked our group members about that poor little girl in that basement. They didn't know her. They didn't know anything about her. But one man did say that she's probably still there. And he was sad about that. Uh, hopefully somebody can move her on, get her out of there. Our group members aren't sure it's going to happen. Sometime later, our friend Nancy, great lady, she used to work with us back in the day, with this ghosty stuff. Nancy and Colleen were together in a barn adjacent to Colleen's house, part of her in-laws' property. And they came across a little girl week in and week out. This went on for a while. This little girl just playfully hiding from somebody and would speak to Nancy and Colleen. Not much, just single words here and there, but loud enough to be very clear, until eventually a man was heard to say her name, Hannah. Hannah. And that was the end of that. Hannah got in trouble for talking to humans. About a year later, Colleen and Nancy went back into that barn and asked about Hannah. Was she still around? Nancy actually made the statement she hung out for a long time. And a man replies, "Yes, she did, unfortunately." A little girl adds to the conversation, "She plays every day." Well, apparently Hannah's still in that barn, and there's another little girl in that barn that they play together. Colleen asks, "How old is Hannah?" And a man, probably the same man, replies, "4 or 5 maybe." Dolores is Colleen's mother-in-law. The woman's in her 80s, and this was some time ago. She was starting to suffer from some form of dementia. She was losing her mind a little bit. She would tell Colleen that a girl in a blue dress would sit with her and watch TV at night. Colleen is skeptical. But at one point when Dolores, she might have gone into the hospital for something minor. Colleen takes some recorders over to Dolores' house and does a quick study and asks about the name of the little girl. A man replies, "Diane," and he says her last name, which I really don't want to share. Diane. She lived up the road. So here we have a little girl that is just in the neighborhood. She lived past tense up the road. And she's just comforting an old woman. Commendable. At Hilbert, we captured a little girl in a recorder. I was at one point stomping down the high grass outside the door. The property wasn't really kept up real well. Didn't have to be. I was stomping down the grass so Colleen and I could walk a little easier to the door with the key. And we record this little girl outside the door saying, "Thank you, Jimmy." Of course, we don't hear anything in real time. We don't hear this until we take these recorders home and plug them in and listen to it all. Colleen and I go inside Hilbert, and after we place the recorders in the kitchen, we're setting up a board game in the living room. Just trying to draw some comments out of these invisible people. In the kitchen, the same little girl asks somebody, "Can I play with them?" And a man tells her no. It's a little unsettling sometimes. We hear children all the time. You can even tell the footsteps are different. Of course, with their short little legs, when they run across the floor, the pattern of their footsteps is different than an adult. We capture that all the time on these recorders. But do they age in the afterlife? That we're not sure about. I'm not sure how that works. The only real age comment that we got that's usable is a couple years after our father died. Colleen was asking about him during a study. And a man correctly said he was born 77 years ago. I was right. He died when he was 75. And this was 2 years later. So the man was correct. But he didn't say his age was 77. So school's out on that thought. I don't know. But that's what I have for you today, my friends. Subscribe, please. I appreciate it. Need the help. And we'll see you soon.